Hey everybody, it's Emily from Life So Savory, and today I am going to be sewing a pair of pajama pants with you all. Well, hopefully. So I'm kind of thinking about and working on fall pajamas and fall clothes for everybody, and I'm working on for my daughter getting ready sort of a combo pajama set, as in one long pant, long shirt, short shorts, and a short sleeve shirt that all are interchangeable, which is super cute. And then she can kind of decide what the weather's like, what she wants to wear to bed. And I've done this before and it's really cute. So I've thought I wanted to create the same sort of idea for myself and make a pajama set that's all interchangeable with different things. So I'm starting with the first item today, which is I'm making myself a pair of pajama pants from the women's free jogger pattern. And you should see that in the description, whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube. Hopefully you see that in the description. If not, I will add it later, or you can go ahead and head to lifesosavory.com and let's see, that's not what I want. I will try to also put it here in the ticker so that you can take a look and see what that looks like. This is my women's jogger pattern. I use it for so many different things. And let's see if I show. Okay, so there you go. So you can see across there, that's the pattern I'm using. So if it's not showing up in a clickable option in the description below or above this video, you can go ahead and do it. So I'm also super excited because I am trying a new camera, and it, like in the test, it looks amazing. It's actually the same camera I use for still pictures and videos, but I've never used it for a live stream. So I'm trying that today. So let me know what you think in the comments when I switch over. This is just the webcam on my computer. It's nothing special. But I am hoping when we do the sewing portion that this will be an awesome option. So I see Arnell and Lucy and Patty rolling in. Thank you guys for saying hi. I'm super excited you're here. And we are going to get sewing. So I have a timer set to go off for my sourdough here in a minute. So I'll have to just pop over and take those loaves out of the oven. But until then, let me tell you what I've got organized for today's show. So 2-inch elastic for the top of the joggers, pajama pants that we're making today. Hi, Debbie. I have a waistband for the top of my pajama pants. I have 2 cuffs, okay, out of this cute striped fabric. I have then out of this yellowish double brush poly, and hopefully you can see the color better on my other camera, but that shows up pretty good. It's kind of like a mustard. And so I'm cutting out 1 size larger and using the jogger pattern. So they will be fitted, but they won't be like leggings. Okay, so just pause, hold that thought. I'm gonna take my sourdough out and then we'll finish the show. I'm on a bit of a tighter schedule here today, getting things done. I was out all morning. Then I had like a little bit of time before the show to bake the bread and not enough time after the show to bake the bread before I pick up the kids from school. And then Rose has a doctor's appointment to do like the follow-up on her new hearing aids, which she's been wearing for a month. So all that to say, just a little bit short on time, and I needed to go take that out while you guys are watching. So, okay, so we're gonna sew. This is gonna be a quick and easy project. We're gonna use both the serger and the sewing machine. I feel like we'll use the sewing machine to do the waistband and some stitching on the waistband. The only change that I made to the jogger pattern is no pockets. So the original jogger pattern has kind of pockets like this jean where they're cut out on the front, and then you had the pocket pouch down below. And I just cut the side of the front across, straight across, and down the side seam, and I did not hollow out that pocket hand portion. Okay, so otherwise I cut the pattern out as directed, and again I'm using the women's jogger pattern for anybody. I think it comes in sizes extra small through extra large. I wear a small or medium depending on the fitting that I want. So this is a medium here because I'm trying to make it just a little bit looser and not super tight. Okay, so let me switch over the cameras, and you guys are just going to hopefully love this. Oh, I better turn it on. Okay, of course. Okay, and all right, there we go. So isn't that so lovely? Look at that. It's beautiful, and hopefully will be a nice, clear picture for you guys to see what I'm sewing and what I'm doing here. And if I try to put myself in the frame as well as the machine. It's not always perfect, but we're going to go with it. So this is just sort of a trial today after last week's show with Angela on the Brother Sews page. I was so frustrated with my webcam and the quality of it and the darkness of it most of all. So I've spent the last few days trying to figure out how to use the camera I already have for streaming, and hopefully it's going to work. So if I look over here, this direction, it's because that's where your comments are showing up. And so I'm also trying to just stay on top of if you guys ask a question or anything like that. So, okay. So again, we're sewing for me. You get to see me model this at the end, and I'm working on Fall PJs. This is going to be a quick and easy project. It is not going to take very long. I have the two fronts and the two backs. These are the front. You can see normally on this pattern, there'd be a loop, half circle-ish, sort of half semicircle cut out here for the side pockets. But because these are PJs, if I did any pockets, I would just put them in the side seam, and I'm going to do no pockets. So let me know if you can hear me. I'm working on getting a better microphone as well, but hopefully I'm speaking loud enough that the computer is picking this up. But please let me know if you can't hear or any of those things that we're doing. So yes, so hopefully you can see this really well. And depending on the project, I may put the camera up closer, but I'm trying to also be in the picture because sometimes it's nice to see, I think, the person doing the sewing as well as the sewing machine. So give me your feedback and your thoughts, and we're gonna get sewing. So I've got an eclectic collection of thread on here, but we're just gonna go with it. And we're gonna sew the front center seam here on these pajama pants. Then we're gonna sew the back center seam. I'm sewing with right sides together. And I see I don't have scissors over here, so let me grab some. Okay, sound is okay. Oh, good. I'm glad, Judy. I wasn't sure about that. The needle is a little bit tight on here. I'm going to rethread my needles real quick. Oh, it's wrapped around. That's why. It just was not being very loose. And of course, what's the worst thing that, my worst nightmare sewing with the serger is that the seams pop, right? That they don't stay stretchy. That's the reason I use the serger, is for stretchy seams. So let me just rethread these needles. I'm going to actually re-sew that seam to make sure, okay, pull out a little bit extra, make sure it's really stretchy, and then we'll try the back and see if that's better. So So this time through, I'm not cutting off any fabric, but it looks like it's laying much nicer and it's fine. So, okay, so I see Ina, I think that's how you say your name. The settings are all at 4. Well, the looper's a little bit tighter than that at 3, or looser than that, because I was having trouble with it wrapping all the way around. But it really was, I think one of the threads was wrapped around the back side of the needle, and then it was like twisted. So pretty sure that was the problem. These are not all stretch threads. So if I use like a nylon or a stretch nylon or a maxi lock or a woolly nylon or whatever you want to call the stretch thread, I usually only use it in the upper looper because that's the one that you see and feel the most, at least on this machine. So today, in my upper looper, the black is a stretch nylon. Okay, so here's that seam you can see there, and hopefully these are stretchy. Okay, so again, not exactly sure. Maybe I'll pull it out of the tension disc, pull it back in, just to make sure it didn't get, we want it to hold its tension there, but you don't want it to be too tight because then, like I said, you pop those seams. So we don't want that either. All right, so the next, you know what I didn't do? I cut this on the edge of the fabric and I never cut it open. So this front is like a tube. So let me cut down that side. I cut right on the edge of the fabric and on a fold. So we can cut this open, and then we're going to put right sides together along the, we're going to sew up the side seams and the inner leg seams. I also have, you can just hem the bottom of this, but I'm going to put cuffs on the bottom, so I'll also do that along the way. Okay. Is my mouth lining up with the sound pretty good? I'm wondering about if there's any delays. Again, this is the first time I'm using this system, so kind of figuring out as I go, but my initial thoughts are happiness. All right, you can see the color of this really, really well. Okay, so there's the front and back. Now I'm going to sew up the side seams, so I'm going to match the top. Okay, so we have the front and back seam that we just sewed in the middle, and now I'm going to sew down each side seam, starting at the top. I like to start at the top in case for some reason when I was cutting or putting things together, I didn't cut each leg exactly the same size. It happens sometimes, especially if I'm lengthening or shortening the pattern. Sometimes I forget to check that they're exactly the same before I sew it up. So I can always adjust the length of the bottom of the leg way easier than if you get to the top and where you're going to sew your waistband on is really weird. We don't want that. So I'm definitely going to sew from the top down. And if you were sewing the pocket on these leggings or these joggers, you would have wanted to sew the pocket on before you're sewing the side seams. Okay, definitely sew the pocket first. Looks like I got about a 1/2 inch difference here on the bottom. See if we can ease that in a little bit. I don't want to stretch too much because I don't want them to be distorted or weird. But these are nailed. So I've never used this pattern with double brush poly before. I've always used it with French terry or sweatshirt fleece for this particular pattern. Let's see, we're just going to loosen the needles just a little bit. Still feels a little bit tight on there. So I'm also thinking that with this fabric, because it's so thin compared to what I've used before, that it's going to seem bigger. Because usually if you use thinner fabric, it's just the garment drapes differently than with thicker fabric. That seems better. with slightly looser needles. So it could be the fabric I was sewing on previously. You know, you need to adjust the settings. That's why you should, I don't always, obviously, you should do a little test piece before you get sewing on your project so you don't have broken seams and things like that. Especially I should do a test before I'm going to jump in and do it live, but I don't always do that. It's like often when we have company, I'll make a new recipe and my husband always is like freaking out. He's like, how do you know it's going to turn out? We're having people over. And I say, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not making like a souffle or anything super fancy. I'm like making a new noodle dish or something that I feel like, well, even if it's not terrible, I'm going to serve it. So I'm not a very anxious host, obviously, as you could tell. Pretty laid back. All right, here is the front. You can see how it's a little bit lower than the back. The background is very bright. Maybe I should think if I close that, it's a little bit better. Seems like it's still bright here, but maybe not as bright in the back. Brenda, let me know if that's helpful. Okay, so this is a little bit lower. That's the front. The back's a little bit higher. We're going to put the waistband on in just a minute. I'm going to sew up the inseam. Thanks, Patty. I can also adjust the exposure on my camera. I just prefer a very bright picture. And because I've been having such dark pictures, I might have overcompensated. So I can like tweak that to next time before I go live. But I'd rather have bright than dark. But you don't want it too washed out. I want you guys to see. All right, so before I sew up these ankles, we're going to put the cuffs on. So I have two cuffs cut like this, rectangles, and we're going to fold it in half with the stretch going side to side. So this is a rib knit that's really cute, and I'm actually working on making some PJs for my daughter out of this particular fabric, but I used some scraps for mine. And I will have to stretch this cuff a little bit. So I do like to get it started, get the teeth in there, and then I'm going to continue to stretch this cuff across the bottom of the pants. And you can use, when I use sweatshirt fabric, I definitely can't use the same fabric for the cuff. The sweatshirt fleece does not stretch. I could have used the same yellow double brush poly. It would have worked just fine. But how cute is that? So cute on there, that cuff. Brenda, I could also, let me see if I just close that one a little bit more. That actually seems pretty good too. I love working in a bright, sunny workspace, but sometimes the light is not always our friend in videos. I will admit that. Okay, thanks, Lois, for your feedback. I appreciate it. Like I said, I am hoping to get a microphone that I'll set over here by where I'm talking, rather than right now. I'm trying to pick it up on my computer, but that's because I am waiting for my microphone to come in the mail. Okay, so you saw last time how I just sort of stretched it across. Let me show you what it would look like to put a couple clips in it. You can see this band. This rib knit had a big swatch of white on the end. So I have the stripe on the outside, but on the inside by my leg, I'm just going to have I'm using that selvage cheater edge, but who cares? So what I would do is I would pin both sides, and then I would stretch, and I will put one clip in the middle. I won't put more clips because it's really not that much fabric. And then I'll know how to stretch it exactly into those halves for the cuff. You can always put the cuff on in a circle too after you've sewn the inseam. But I, if possible, like to do it while the leg is still open. so that I can just sew it flat like this. It's nice and easy to be able to stretch it and just go across like this. I don't know if any of you caught Angela's live show. Also this afternoon, she and I have been going back and forth trying to get the camera situation worked out. So she said it worked for her. So she said, good luck to me. So anyway, I think it is working well. And oh my goodness, so much better than last week, right? Okay, so now, I just love that. And then I'm also going to make a top for myself that's matching with these two fabrics. Maybe I'll make that next week, or maybe I'll get it done before next week, but I can show you either way. So the next thing is to sew up the inseam because we already put the cuff on the end. Now we need to make sure we line up those two bottom edges of the cuff perfectly, because you will see that exposed stitching. And then we'll just, you've seen before, I like to just finish that serger tail with a little needle and thread. And we'll do that in a minute. Oh, that one does need to be a little tighter. All right, so we're sewing up one leg. The one thing you want to note, and this is lining up perfectly, but when you get to the middle, you want those center, front, and back seams to be lined up nicely. So I like to check what I'm about here in case I need to stretch one side just slightly. If you have to stretch it a lot, well, then you have a big problem and you don't want it to look weird and distorted. But if it just is a matter of like easing one side in, then it's not a big deal. Okay, so now we're going to go down the other leg. Okay. So up one, across the center, down the other leg, and then again, when we get to the bottom, we need to make sure that we're lining up. Those cuffs need to meet perfectly so that it looks nice. So I definitely want to start doing checks when there's still time to ease those seams together. Okay, so this is where I want it to end up. So I'm going to, at this point, start to ease that a little bit. It's not off much at all, but just that tiny, tiny little bit that we want to make sure is in there. Okay, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a serger tail so that I can weave in the ends here real quick. Okay, Patty, I'll save that project next week. So I think I actually cut it out because I'm trying to I was trying this morning to just cut out several projects. But I'm going to use my women's, the fitted raglan, not, if you saw last week's project, I made the raglan sweatshirt, which is a really loose fitting top. And I have another raglan shirt that's more like a shirt, and it's just fitted like a shirt. So I'm going to use that because I'm trying to make my daughter a 4-piece set, and I'm trying to make myself a 2-piece set. I am being a little bit creative on piecing the fabric, so we'll see how that all turns out. Okay, so now we need to turn this right side out. I think the legs are going to look super cute here. These feel so fat, so soft. And if you've sewn with double brush poly, you know how soft it is. Okay, look at that. So cute, right? Those cuffs on the bottom. So because I am trying to conserve fabric a little bit, I am not using the same fabric for the waistband, because I realized after I got it started cutting that I had less of those stripes than I thought I did. I thought I had a yard and I only have a half yard. And I want to sew part of my daughter's outfit out of it. So I just used the white silage edge. Again, this was all extra because this was a custom print fabric, that's actually part of the print, weird. Custom print fabric, I have big selvage edge white pieces on both sides of the print, okay? So I'm just gonna use this. It's beautiful rib knit, it's white, and it's gonna make a great waistband. So I did not measure I measured the width, I did not measure the length. So I'm gonna do that right now, and then sew the waistband into a circle. Actually, look at that, it's like cut perfectly. Okay, so right sides together. I'm gonna go ahead and sew this waistband into a circle. Okay. Okay, waistband into a circle. And now let's pin. What is this big safety pin doing under my machine? So weird. And now we have this pin on. So all this fabric came from Raspberry Creek Fabrics. I just put an order in yesterday for another big load of fabric. I'm going to be demonstrating the new Brother Serger at the Houston Quilt Festival with allbrands.com and the All Brands team and store. And so they want me to do projects with the serger. So I have a cute little dress that uses several serger techniques. And so I'm going to be making that project multiple times over the course of the show. And so I just ordered all the fabric. So cute. All the fabric to make those dresses. And I think my sister has 4 girls. So I thought, oh, if I sew this project 4 times over the course of the festival, because I think it's 1 or 2 demonstrations a day, so it could even be more than that, then I'll have cute dresses to send to my nieces. So that's my plan. But raspberrycreekfabrics.com, they have amazing seasonal releases, and then just tons of different fabric all the time. So check it out. Super fun. I would order more if I order a lot. But of course, there's so many fabrics I don't order, even though I think they're adorable, because my daughter only needs so many outfits. And the boys aren't really into cutesy fabrics anymore. But if you are looking for just like plain sweatshirt fleece for like teenagers, they also have a wonderful selection, and it's beautifully soft sweatshirt fleece. So I did order like 3 or 4 more yards of just plain gray to make my kids, the boys, sweatpants. So it's amazing. All right. We are going to sew on the waistband and then put in the elastic. I'm going to use nice wide elastic, and then I will go ahead and add some top stitching on that to finish and make sure it stays nice and secure in the casing. So I feel like sometimes if I don't top stitch initially, the elastic stays put just fine. But after you wash it, I think it like folds over and the casing gets twisted with wide elastic. I do find that adding 1 or 2 rows of top stitching is just super helpful. So I actually had a pair of pajama shorts that I had sewed last year, and I never wore them because the elastic and the casing was like folding over weird and kept like, it wasn't sliding in it because I had sewn a couple stitches this way, but it was like sliding within it this way. So I went back and I put 2, maybe 3 rows of stitching around it this way. Oh my goodness, it's like I have new shorts. So sometimes when you don't like something, it's worth taking the time to go back and fix it and make it right, which I don't always do. tail is caught up in there. Okay. So this waistband is just a tiny bit smaller than the pants. So I'm just having to stretch a little bit as I go around. And then I'm going to leave like a 2 to 3 inch opening for us to thread the elastic through. Some weird threads getting, it's like there's a thread caught down in there. Oh. My looper isn't threaded, but it's sewed correctly. So that's weird. Okay, well, I'm just gonna leave this because we're just gonna finish on the sewing machine, and I will correct that later, but we can finish the last. We'll sew the whole clothes on the sewing machine, and then I was gonna sew around a few times with the sewing machine anyway, so totally fine. Okay. Yes, Lois. So it is, it depends on, like I said, I'm doing, my top might be a little bit shorter than I normally would make because I am trying to use this fabric work for both my daughter and myself. So we will see how long this shirt is. It might be a little bit shorter than I normally make, but what I was thinking is maybe I would put like a band on the bottom of the shirt if I really felt like it wasn't long enough. So I will look at that before I sew it live so I can have that band prepped if I feel like I need it. But so cute. Look at that rib knit. It's so beautiful on there and is looking great on the top of these PJs. Okay, so we're just going to thread this around. I should order this as soon as I finish this show. I need a new elastic threader. Mine I've used for a very long time, and the teeth are no longer very grippy. So like half the projects I do, the gripper lets go before I get the elastic all the way through. And how frustrating is that to get almost all the way around, and then your bodkin decides to let go of the elastic. So I'm being very careful here in my pulling just because I've been burned a couple times recently in projects that I've done. Oh, it's pretty good, but it did slide a little bit. So I definitely, it's just these teeth are getting dull because I've used it so much. So I just need to get a new one of those. Okay, so we're going to overlap the elastic. Going to put a pin in it, and then let me just slide this camera over so that you can see. Let's see. You can see the sewing machine as well. Lois, I order almost all my elastic on Amazon, and I don't know if it's good, but it's not bad. Maybe let's just say that. So I will say with this wider elastic, if I plan on, you don't really need to see my legs like that. If I plan on sewing like I am right now around the waistband a few times, I will cut the elastic on the smaller side, right? So if it says to cut it 36 inches, I would cut it 34 inches because I do find when I sew around this multiple times, it does stretch it out a little bit, but this has really good recovery. So if you're interested, I can give you the links to this elastic. I just brought this roll fairly recently, but seriously, it was off Amazon. And I probably just put in 2-inch elastic for sewing. I don't have like a go-to source necessarily. All right, so I'm going to start by zigzagging on both. So I had this overlapped about a 1/2 inch. We're going to sew on one side, zigzag, Then I'm going to flip this over and sew on the other side. See that overlap there? And then we'll have 2 parallel lines of stitching, and that will help secure that elastic with a flat seam and a good overlap. Okay, so now I can pull this inside the casing. Oh my goodness, these are so cute and they look so comfy. I seriously can't wait to try these on. I'm going to model them for you when I'm done. Just you wait and see. All right, so now because I'm not going to go back over to my serger, I'm going to use that same zigzag. I'm going to widen it to a 4. And I'm going to sew right along the edge here, stretching as I can to close that opening. I might go serge that later, but not today. Okay. So now the next thing I want to do is I want to even out these gathers along the top of the waistband. So I'm just going to give it some good stretches to try and even that out. You want to make sure your elastic is laying flat in the casing, that it's not twisted, right? It can like go like this, right? So that it's more on the back and less on the front. Nope, we want it nice and flat. Then I'm going to put several pins around to hold this from sliding while we go and put those parallel stitches in the waistband. This is going to keep it from sliding, from rolling, and from folding as we're wearing such a wide waistband. Okay? There it is. So cute, right? I wish it did match the cuffs. And honestly, it's the same fabric, it's the same rib knit, but it's just the white on there. Okay, so we'll start in the back. I like to start with the top seam, okay? But maybe I'll start with the bottom actually so the pins are not in the way. So I'm gonna put a center needle and then I'm going to make my stitch length to 3. The default is 2. And then we're going to sew around. So what we need to do though, as I'm sewing, is I need to, once I get in here, I need to stretch this so that it's flat. See all these wrinkles in the fabric? I do need to pull it so there's no wrinkles when I'm sewing. So you will see I use 2 hands and I kind of aggressively pull the fabric and the elastic as I'm sewing. But this is really going to create a beautiful waistband look. And I do this technique with both knit fabric and woven fabric when I'm using wide waistbands. Is my arm in the way? Should I try to stretch this way? That's probably better. So this lowest stitch, you can kind of see how sometimes that the pant fabric is like folding over and getting in there. So just make sure if it looks like you're going to start sewing that you stop and readjust. Every time you get to a pin, you should not have extra fabric. You should be sort of squared up and the fabric should lay flat when you get to that pin. So we don't want any bumps or bubbles in the fabric. Okay, so now that's one time around. Then I take it and I move it to the middle and we're going to do it again. So we're just going to try to sew right down the middle of the fabric. You can use some of the stitch guides on your sewing machine if you wanted to get really fancy. Actually, it's not fancy at all. I should have put white thread on the machine so that you wouldn't see these stitches at all. But for the sake of demonstration, actually the gray thread is really great so that you guys can actually see what I sewed on here, okay? Because if it was white thread, you really wouldn't even be able to see what I did. After this next round, I'm going to pull out the pins to sew the final round. Because I can't, I know I'm sewing over pins, but I definitely can't sew over the pin heads, which is the next round of the fabric. Okay, so now I'm going to take this pin out. We're going to raise the needle. Actually, maybe I'll cut the thread, move it up. This top one, I like to use the edge of the presser foot as my guide. That just helps it kind of go straight across the top of the fabric. You can see my middle line wasn't exactly straight here, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm stopping and removing the pins, twisting the pants. And yes, white thread probably would have been the best option, but I'm not sad because then I can really show you where and how we stitched on here. So will actually be better for the demonstration than if I did a good job matching my thread. Okay, so let me just clip this extra thread, and then here's kind of a close-up of the waistband. Will that focus on there? Okay, so there you can see super stretchy. There's the outside. Ooh, that middle one, not very straight right here. And then there's the inside. Again, woo, not very straight. Some parts are better than others. This is the front, and that is a little bit good. Okay, so stitch, use a guide, maybe, if you want to. And I'm going to just raise this up a little bit here. Can look at this view of my house while I step to the side and do a little quick change so that you can see these awesome pants. Okay, so just hang with me for 20 seconds. Shouldn't take me long. These are so soft, so cozy that I'm thinking that this is going to be a big success, but I never know, I guess, till I pull them all the way on. Okay. So I think, should I just stand back further? This rug is, hold it over. Okay. Super soft, super cozy, no pockets, but I love it. The cuff, perfect. The waistband, perfect. Okay. There's a mark on the joggers to sew a higher waistband or a higher pant or a lower pant. This is the higher one. So you can see it comes up pretty high on me. Here's my belly button. Here's where the waistband is. I mean, of course I can lower it a little bit, but then you get this in front. So you can cut on the lower mark or the higher mark before you sew the waistband on to really get a good look. But because I wasn't sure how short my shirt was going to be, I went higher on the waistband. So anyway, what do you think? I think I love it. So soft. These cuffs are adorable. And I wish I had more of that fabric now, but I don't. So anyway, I think they look great for PJs. Would I maybe not wear this style of double brush poly for clothing? I don't know. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just not sure that I would do that. So, but overall, they're really comfy, and I'm excited to make the matching shirt. And then we'll do that next week, and then we'll have a complete outfit, and I'll get to show you what it looks like all put together. So again, this pattern is amazing in sweatshirt fleece. French terry makes great easy sweatpants. So grab it for yourself. Sew up some comfy pants, whether for sleeping or just for everyday wear. You won't regret it. And I will see you guys next week with another fun sewing project. And it will be the top for these PJs. So you know what's coming, and I won't have to think about it for the next week. What am I going to sew live? So it'll be great. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you next time. Be sure to subscribe on either Facebook or Pinterest or both, wherever you're watching. Not Pinterest, YouTube. And I'll see you next week. Bye.